think we're good. So I'm not even sure what I'm going to call this yet. Maybe like trench trash. Just some random.
Yeah. Should we come up with a name for this? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, maybe one will come to us. I kind of like trench trash. I don't know, because I feel like we're just going to talk some shit, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it has a nice ring to it.
Oh, and I realized too, I didn't even do an intro. So obviously, yeah, this is Flight of Icarus, and then I'm here with what do you want to go by? Dave. So
Raffy.
you know him from his Raffy Reviews, probably, that you've read on the site. And the funny thing too is even though we've been communicating for a while now, this is our first time actually speaking to each other. And you've been writing for the site how long now?
Since September of 2017.
So this is the digital age where you can know each other for 2 years and technically work together, and this is the first time you hear each other's voices. So we got a couple. I've just been kind of listing things off as you brought them up to me this week that I thought would be amusing. So the first one is why don't we start with the new Whitechapel?
Oh man. You really want to talk about that one?
So I don't know, how much of it have you listened to?
You mean the last single?
Oh, so you've just heard have you heard a bunch of the songs or just the one? Or
I heard I was referring to the two singles they released.
Yeah.
Last month or so. Yeah, and nothing really good to say about them.
No,
honestly, on my end.
yeah. Me neither. I listened to the singles and was not impressed. I was already pretty, honestly, I have not liked them since the self-titled. That's actually my favorite. I know some people even say they hate that one and they go back to the first two basically, but
I can only listen to Somatic Defilement. This is Exile, I think one was called.
Yeah, that was a popular one.
Yeah, those are my go-tos. Anything else, I don't know, I just can't get into it.
And the last one before this one was just super generic. It was the first one with the singing. Honestly, the singing didn't bother me on that one. Those were actually probably the most interesting parts, but then it was so processed and just bland.
Yeah, honestly, I just can't get into the new sound.
Yeah,
the new sound going with.
Me neither. Yeah. And I'm fine with a band changing. And I listened to, I just came out of listening to the new Periphery for the first time. And, as much as people hate on Periphery, I love Periphery, but I can't get behind this new Whitechapel stuff. I
don't know. I guess I'm more of a volumes guy, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, all that to say, we're fine with singing. It's just, this is not good. And so I got the full album and I couldn't even get through it. I started listening to it.
Oh, you already listened to the whole thing?
No, I couldn't get through it. I have it and I can't. I just can't. I got through, I think, 3 songs and I just turned it off, which is pretty rare. I'll usually give something a full chance, but it was not doing it for me.
So maybe a 3 out of 10 then?
I can't even score it because I feel like it's not fair to score it if I haven't actually listened to it all the way through. That's my policy. But, that's probably a fair assumption.
Yeah, in all fairness, what would you give Mark of the Blade, the previous one?
I reviewed that one. So I gave that a pretty generous 7 out of 10. And looking back on it, I would probably downrate that even more. I think a 6 out of 10 feels pretty fair.
Some would say that one was comparable to, Suicide Silence, self-titled, Bat League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in that realm. To be completely honest, I actually liked the Suicide Silence better than Mark of the Blade. I'm just going to put it out there.
That's the hill you want to die on?
I'm not going to die on that hill, but I'll say this. Here's my reasoning behind it, is that Mark of the Blade still sounds like Whitechapel, but it's just so bland and by the numbers. Now, the Suicide Silence album is not good, but at least it's different. At least they tried something. At least they tried to do something new. And so I give them some extra props for that. that's
Honestly,
my thinking.
I can't say I'm like a huge fan of any of Suicide Silence albums. Like the closest I'd say is The Cleansing, maybe, but that's more of like nostalgia for me.
Yeah, I like their old stuff. It's fun, but yeah, it's not. I won't die on a hill for any of their albums. I'll put it that way. But they're fun. They're good to go back to. So yeah, so Whitechapel, yeah, I mean, if I had to turn it off, then it's definitely somewhere below a 5. I don't know where, but
just like in general from the stuff you've heard so far off the new one.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's kind of a bummer though. Like, I really like the cover. I like the kind of.
Are you gonna write up a review on that one?
No, I'd have to listen to the whole thing. And the thing is, like, there's just so much music coming through, and a lot of like good music picking up right now that I can't waste time listening to an album I hate. And that's why I don't write reviews of albums I don't like, because I just won't listen to them. I refuse to like waste my time and readers' time on something I don't think is worth them even checking out. But
yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I do like the kind of 80s or 70s 80s horror style cover, and I think they were kind of going for that aesthetic, but the music's just not good, and the music video is super cringy too.
For some reason, it reminded me of Deftones. I don't know why.
But I like Deftones, though. So, like, I kind of get what you're saying, but at least Deftones is good. This is not good.
I mean, like, I don't think I stopped at listening as self-titled.
For Deftones? Yeah, well, I mean, White Pony alone, like, for me, makes them stand above most bands. You should check out No Koyokan. That album's really good. If you're gonna check out a post self-titled album, that's the good one. I'd actually put that maybe in their top 3. It's a really solid album.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I don't remember that one.
Yeah,
I don't remember that name. Yeah. I know everyone hypes up White Pony.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just. And then you'll get in fights with people because some people say that's just such a like simple answer to give, but it really is. Around the first grade too.
That was one of the '90s ones, like the late '90s albums. You mean?
Early, I think it came out in 2000. Like right.
Okay, yeah, because right I remember there was one with like a chick on it. Like
that's Around the Fur. Yeah, that one's good too. I think that was like 99.
Yeah.
Somewhere thereabouts, but yeah. That's all good stuff. Whitechapel, not good stuff.
No.
Let's
I'll give it that. I thought the production quality was pretty decent on the new singles. That's about it.
For Whitechapel, I'll give it that. It was better than the production on Mark of the Blade, which again was just like terrible. Like it was so honestly, condensed.
Like, I think like to me his singing voice isn't that bad, but like I don't think it fits into Whitechapel's style.
Yeah, it's not the singing itself, it's the songwriting. It's just not good songwriting. I don't know. Like I think if they were able to figure out how to write a coherent song in that style, then maybe it would be fine. But I just don't think they've gotten there. And yeah. Let's switch gears to another new single, Amon Amarth. And we had a little bit of a debate on this one.
That before. I didn't mind that one, honestly.
Yeah, and I told you I have a hard disagree on that one. That's another one where the production just feels super flat. Like when I come to Amon, and I posted my opinion on it with that. Actually, what happened was I tried to record a reaction video to me actually watching it in real time, but the audio got all screwed up and I was kind of bummed. So that's when I just posted that change my mind meme. And I was just like, screw it.
Were you going to do like one of those like reactions YouTubers do, like show your face and stuff? Like
I wasn't going to show my face, but yeah, I was going to play the video and like pause here and there. And that's what I did. But the parts where I tried to talk over it, the video was way too loud. I'm still a noob at that shit. But yeah, so I just gave up and I posted that meme as basically as my review. And, it was kind of funny because a lot of the comments were like, well, that's Amon Amarth for you. Like a lot of Amon Amarth hate.
That's my point. It sounds just like all their other stuff. That's why you can't really be disappointed
But
or surprised.
I disagree though. Like I like Amon Amarth because to me Amon Amarth is fun. And part of what's fun about them is they're like super grandiose and kind of tongue-in-cheek, and their music sounds very big usually. And
they're just like one of those like groovy, cliche melodeath, I guess.
Yeah, they're not like amazing, but I own a whole bunch of their albums. I have a good time listening to them. I want to catch them live. But the production of this new song just, again, kind of sounds really flat. And so there's none of that, like, epic vibe to it. The riffs are not memorable. The music video is bizarre, too. I was like, what the hell is going on in this video?
Yeah, it was like I don't know, some kind of like a bar fight. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're like in a bar, and then, like, the women in the bar are, like, turning into, like, creatures or like witches and then it's cross-cutting to like some historic battle that's like happening in the arcade or something. Like I couldn't even follow it. And the other thing that bothered me, I was like, if you're gonna do a partially like kind of live performance style music video for Amon Amarth, you've got to be like on stage reacting to an audience and have like the big audience there. I'm thinking of if you ever saw the music video for Demiurge by Meshuggah, like that's a good example of like a good live video because like you see.
Yeah, honestly, like I was always keen on seeing them live because I never did. So I'd be curious to see what they're like live.
Yeah, and that's what bothered me though, because in this video they're like performing live, but there's no audience. If you watch it again, there's no audience. There's no, like, reaction shots. It's like, clearly they're just standing in a room recording a music video. And there's nothing, like, Viking metal about that. It just completely defeats the whole premise of their music to me. So I'm just like, why are we even doing this? So that's why I was, like, still disappointed. I didn't expect much from them, because honestly, I didn't like Jom's Viking. And I know a lot of people liked that one, but I found it really boring.
So overall, based on like the music and the video alone, you'd say it was like mediocre. You said bland.
Yeah. Super mediocre, verging on bad. I don't hate it, but I wouldn't listen to it again. I kind of just nothing it. It's just like whatever. Moving on. I mean,
to be fair, like it had all the typical rhythm and the little guitar solos in between,
but none of the energy. Like, none of the energy was there. Like, I go back and I listen to even tracks on, like, Deceiver of the Gods, and I get, like, amped up. Like, I can drive and listen to even relatively recent Amon Amarth albums and get really pumped. This song did none of that for me.
I mean, Pursuit of Vikings will always be my jam.
Yeah. They've got some solid ones. So I was kind of surprised at the hate in the comments just for the band overall, but you know, I still laughed with it. Like I'm not the person either. I also hate when people are like so behind a band that they're not willing to criticize them and not willing to laugh about that, and they get all butthurt when people like shit talk their band. I don't care. Like to me, it's all fun.
There was hate in the comments, really?
Yeah, just for Amon Amarth in general. Like, the basic consensus of the comments was Amon Amarth sucks. Like, that was kind of the point I got. And I laughed at it, but I've got an Amon Amarth patch on my vest. It's whatever, you know? Everybody's got different opinions. Somebody may love... So I say that all the time. Like, somebody may love Five Finger Death Punch. I can't stand Five Finger Death Punch. They annoy the shit out of me. But that's just honestly, my opinion. Like,
I've yet to meet like someone in real life who's a legit fan of that band. So.
Funny story. I would have agreed with you until I think it was like 2 months ago. I went and saw... who did I just see live? Why am I blanking on this? Well, anyways, I went to a show and I was chatting with some people outside, and we were all kind of like talking about each other's like patches and what bands they liked. And Five Finger Death Punch came up, and I was talking about how much I hate them. And this kid was like, he like looked down all sad. It was like, I don't know, man, they're pretty cool. And I felt really bad for him because this is like a younger kid.
It was like a teenager.
Yeah, he was like in high school, and I'm like, hey man, it's cool. Like, that's just my opinion. Like, it's okay. You can like whatever you want. Like, I like, again, plenty of like, people are probably gonna rag on me for the video I just posted for the new Periphery because I am totally floored by it, and I know some people just think that they are a garbage band and pop garbage and a complete waste of time, and that's fine.
They're not memorable, but they're not bad either.
You better listen to the new one, man, because they went like full prog on this one. It's pretty crazy.
Oh, when is that new album coming out then?
April, I want to say 4th, but let me double check. It comes out April 8th. April 8th, and I just listened to it the first time, and I loved it so much, I rolled straight into a response video that I literally just posted like right before we started this. So
yeah, because I remember a couple of years ago, the previous album they had, I don't know, the release was kind of weird. They did it was like different like parts, or I don't know what they did. It was like what was it called? Choose your difficulty?
Yeah, Periphery 3, Choose Your
like
Difficulty. That. Yeah, I really liked that one. I like all of them, though, honestly. I didn't like the 2-part concept album at first, Alpha and Omega, but it grew on me. But all of the core numbered albums I've loved, and I mean, I'm just a huge fanboy going back to literally when they posted the Icarus Lives music video, which was their very first single. I saw it because my friend posted on Facebook, and I've been a fan basically ever since then.
Yeah, Periphery's still one of those bands where I need to go back and listen to their entire discography to form a fair opinion on them. What would you recommend I start with, since
it's hard. I mean, they're all good for different reasons. If you want just kind of that straight early gent metalcore style when that wasn't even really a thing yet, it was just sort of getting started, then go with their first album. If you want something that gets a little bit more grandiose, starts building up the prog elements a little bit more, then Periphery 2 is good. And then Periphery 3 kind of added more orchestration, and now this new one is just straight up it's basically like a prog metal album. It's all over the place. And I don't want to just recap everything I said in that other video, but I encourage you to check it out. I'll be interested to hear what you think about it. I think some people are really going to hate it just because there's a lot of singing on it, a lot of melodic elements, a lot of poppier elements. I like all that.
Can I just I'm sorry, can I just take the conversation off tangent for a little bit?
Yeah, let's move away from it completely, honestly.
No, I just have one quick question. What's your opinion on Meshuggah and their kind of influence on the whole prog gent thing?
Well, I mean, in a nutshell, they started gent. I don't know if there would be gent without Meshuggah. In terms of
they were one of those big acts that kind of originated it, helped to form it or whatever.
Yeah.
Back in the, what was it, late 90s? I'm not sure. Mid 90s?
Yeah, later 90s. I didn't discover them until early 2000s, but I somehow came across Future Breed Machine, which blew my mind when I heard it the first time, and then I bought Nothing.
Yeah, there's Nothing, and then there's Obzen, I think.
Yeah, they've got a bunch. Yeah. I have, that's another band where I have all the albums except for I think it's Catch 33. I think it's the only one I don't have.
Yeah, I think actually, didn't they release a box set of all their albums?
Yeah, they did a vinyl box set, which I drooled over and totally wanted to get, but my money all goes back into bills and shit, man. That's why I only collect CDs. Let's talk about so the new Slipknot drama. So I haven't even been following it super closely, but
you saw the meme I sent you.
Yes. Yeah. Which was hilarious. I really liked that one. How
many people left? 3, 4?
That's what I'm confused about. So I obviously damn it, what's his name? The main drummer's been out for a pretty long time now because he was strung out or whatever. He was dealing with drug issues.
What, Jordison?
Yeah. And then
That's why he left. I didn't
yeah,
know.
that was my understanding. And then, although I think he contests that, but anyways, and then the bass player died of a drug overdose, if I recall.
That was like what, 5 years ago, I think.
I think even more than that, but I don't even know. And then so now I know, was it Chris Fain? And so is it two of them? Is that my understanding, that like two of them? I think also, or was that see, I'm starting to confuse reality with memes now, because I've been seeing a bunch of them and now I can't remember like which members are actually like suing and which ones aren't. Because I thought
I know one of them was the guy with the drum, the percussion guy.
Yeah, the guy with he was the long nose dude, I think. Although they keep changing their masks and I can't even keep track of it. I don't even really listen to their stuff so much anymore.
I don't know most of their names, so
yeah, I know some of them because I was a hardcore fan back in like the self-titled days. But I know there's like Sean is the clown, obviously Corey, Chris Fain.
Yeah, Sean, Corey, Joey, Jim Root, I think.
Yeah, Jim Root's one of the guitar players. I forget which one. And then Chris Fain, I think, is one of the percussionists. I think that's the main one that's like complaining about not getting paid right now. But it has been very meme worthy. I've been trying to scope out more. Dude, metalheads make shit memes overall. I gotta say, on average, like the stuff I've seen out there is crap. It's really hard to find really funny stuff.
You're talking on the basis of like within the actual metal groups, like what, like pick squeals and breakdowns, metal and cool collectors, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and even like I found a few, like Dan's helped me find some of the more obscure groups, and there's more good stuff in there, but even so, like it's just not for every one really good one. There's like 50 horrible ones.
There's one that like a friend of mine that I met a few years ago on Facebook. He helps run, or I think he's the main admin. It's called Deathcore Memes.
Yes, yeah, I've been on there. There are some good ones on there. You got to do it just right. Like some of them are just kind of lazy, and it's like, oh yeah, like metalheads are like this, and I'm like, come on, man, you put a little more effort into it than that.
It's like memes that you could use in pretty much any context.
Yeah, and I'm like, I never thought that my memes were particularly good. I just kind of threw them together when I thought they were funny. But honestly, seeing some of what's out there, I feel a lot better about mine now. I think. What
do you do? You just Photoshop them, or use the use the meme generator online?
A mixture of both. If I'm just like, if I have a quick idea and I just want to throw it up, I'll usually just go in the meme generator. But occasionally, if I come up with something that I really is like literally making me laugh out loud just thinking about it, and I have the time, then I'll go Photoshop it. But that's a rarer occasion.
Yeah, I have like one or two guys like on my friends list who post like literally like over 50 memes a day, like on their stuff. And like from what I understand, it's all like their original content. And I'm like, don't you guys have day jobs?
Yeah, I know, man. Like people are obsessed with it. But the funny thing is, well, it's funny and it's also irritating. And I've commented on this. I think I said it in my first like meme review video that you can post a great band, a great album, a review, and you'll get like a handful of reactions to it. But if you post a good meme, you'll get like, it'll go viral. Like you'll get tons and tons of engagement on that. And it's like, it's funny, but it's also really frustrating because I'm like, why can't you guys respond to like, these musicians took hours and hours and sometimes years to like record this album, but you'd rather look at this like devil goat meme and laugh at it, or the behemoth.
I mean that's why we should pay more attention to Tool. They're still working on that new album.
Yeah. I don't know if that can possibly live up to expectations though. Like it's been so long, the hype is so big. I'm wondering if they can pull it off.
2006, right?
God, when did
10,000 days was like I think 06 or something. Yeah, I just Googled it. It was April 2006.
No, all right, you're right. Man, that's a long gap. And I'm all for a band taking their time, but it gets to a point where it's just like, I don't know if you can live up to that. I'll be impressed if they do. I'm a longtime fan.
Honestly, like, a lot of people don't like the last album, so...
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's the one I listen to the least. And there's a lot of, like, kind of filler to me. They went more kind of experimental with, like, the weird, like, tribal drum circle type track. And then there's, like, kind of just more explorative post-metal moments. And I don't know. I much prefer... You know, Anima is my favorite, or however you pronounce it. Everybody else argues over how you pronounce that. I'm probably doing it wrong. And of course, Lateralis and
Oh, you mean Enema?
yeah, Enema, whatever you want to call it. And
there's Enema, Lateralis, 10,000 Days, and I think what was the last one called? Undertow? That's like I think that's the first one, actually.
Yeah, Undertow was the first full length, and then they had an EP before that. And that's all good. It's kind of interesting. I like that early stuff for different reasons, because the first album's a little bit more kind of hard rock, like grungy. Henry Rollins does spoken word on one of my favorite tracks. It's just like a raw album.
Really?
Yeah, there's a song on Undertow. The name escapes me right now, but yeah, Henry Rollins does this like really dramatic spoken word part on it, and I love that song. That's one of my favorites from them, from like their earlier period. Bottom. That's the name of the song, Bottom. And that's on Undertow.
And that's on Undertow,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's actually a video of him recording his part on it, and it was back in the day, so he's still like young. Dude, Rollins.
Oh, kind of like a documentary style thing?
Yeah, kind of. It's like a behind-the-scenes sort of deal. It just popped. When I searched Tool Henry Rollins, it's one of the first hits is the video. Yeah. Let's talk about the other thing.
There was one other single I heard recently that maybe I wanted to bring up. You heard the last After the Burial track they released?
Yeah, man. I've heard the album. It's awesome as usual.
Oh, you like it? Because I didn't like this. I actually didn't like the single.
Oh, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Like I thought the freaking guitar riffs were annoying. Really?
With like all the harmonics and stuff.
I feel like that's their usual style, though. I don't know. I really liked.
I thought they just it was too much.
Huh. Oh, I really liked it. The album's pretty good. It's short, but it's good. It's pretty consistent. I like Dig Deep more than this new one. I thought Dig Deep was just a really solid album. And then, of course... I'm
assuming you listened to Rare Form. Now,
yeah,
that was a classic.
Rare Form's their best, by far. I would actually put Dig Deep probably second to Rare Form at this point. And then... probably the second album, which name I'm forgetting at the moment, and then I'd put
I know they have
the Wolves one. I forget what the name of the one with wolves in the title is, but that's my least favorite.
Within Wolves, yeah.
That's my least favorite, just because I hate the production on that album. It's like super compressed to the point where it's like if you took like a great picture and then you just like turn it into stick figures. It's like the instrumentation and songwriting is there, but then it's like a shadow of itself because it's so compressed.
I need to go back and listen to that one because I barely remember it, honestly.
Yeah, it just sounds weird, especially relative. If you roll from one album into that one, you'll totally notice just it's a weird sounding album. Still fine though. Like I don't dislike that album. I still own it, but they're just a pretty consistent band, which is actually kind of a nice segue because we also wanted to talk about the big four of metalcore because we were debating this, and I thought it would be fun to just sort of talk it out. We sort of came to some conclusions, but
yeah, we were making a bunch of lists on the Messenger and stuff.
Yeah, so we were parsing it out. And a lot of bands came to mind. I really wanted to just define, though, because a lot of people get confused when you say Big Four, because I think a lot of people hear Big Four and they just think, what are the four best bands in that genre? Yeah. But that's not what that means. I mean, it means what are the four bands that had the most impact on sort of creating the genre and like solidifying the sound. Like the most influential bands that basically everybody else copied from there on out.
I guess the 4 bands that had like the widest range and the most influence, right?
Yeah, and also like were foundational in starting it. So I mean, obviously, again, the term Big Four comes from thrash, because the thrash Big Four are, Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and shit, what's the fourth one? Why am I blanking on it right now?
Maiden. Isn't it Maiden?
No, I think it's Anthrax.
Anthrax, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Anthrax. There was a funny meme on that too I saw the other day. So everybody's sharing that like "Let Me In" meme with "Let Me In," and they had it like the Big Four is on one side of the fence, and then Exodus is the one going "Let Me In." Killed me. That was great. I like that meme.
I honestly never listened to a lot of Exodus.
Exodus is pretty good. They're fun. I actually like Exodus more than Anthrax personally. I've never been a big Anthrax fan. I'm not really a big Megadeth fan either.
Yeah, a lot of people shit on Anthrax actually.
Yeah, I have a friend who is like OG Anthrax fan, and we got in an argument once over Exodus versus Anthrax. I did give him credit, and he's like, "Well, dude, which one like had the most diversity and had the more talented singer?" And he broke down all these points. I'm like, okay, I guess those are fair points. Even though I don't like the band, I can objectively say that their singer has a wider range and they kind of do more stuff with their instrumentation, but whatever. So all that to say, we got to figure out, and it's interesting with metalcore because I feel like thrash, it's kind of relatively easy to determine the Big Four because thrash has kind of stayed pretty consistent. Like, what that sound is. There's not a lot of variability in terms of what you're going to get when you listen to a thrash album. But when it comes to metalcore is different.
Fair, there isn't a lot of thrash left
nowadays. Yeah, I mean, I think partly for that reason, because there's a few bands out there that have like taken it to different heights, like Vector, totally.
Or what about like Power Trip?
Yeah, and then there's bands that do that more crossover sound. I like Power Trip because it's like crossover plus some kind of like almost blackened atmosphere. It's like a lot darker. So you can do things with it. I just feel like it's harder because there's a lot more just restraints on what it's supposed to sound like. Whereas with metalcore, there's a pretty broad range of different things that could mean, because you've got your like more gent influence bands that we've been talking about. You've got your more kind of just old school, more hardcore influenced bands. You've got bands that basically now, it's all over the place. So it makes it harder. The more I think about it, the harder it is to really nail down, like, what would be the Big Four.
No Parkway, no Prada, no August Burns Red.
No, I was on the fence about August Burns Red, but I do feel like they came late to the party and they don't do anything new. They don't bring anything new to the table. I think lately they have. I give them credit for being one of the few metalcore bands from back in the day that not only still put out good music, but actually are one of the better bands in the genre, because they've taken these more progressive elements in, and I think they're helping to define sort of the new wave, but they're not like a foundational band.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
They're defining the new characteristics and shaping the modern sound of the metalcore genre.
Yeah, they're helping to push it in a new direction. But as far as their early days and when they came in, they were kind of just copying stuff that was already sort of there.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Messengers and Constellations.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, no question there. I'm not shitting on anything they've done, but they're definitely not Big Four. And then we were also talking about how you get the purists who go all the way back to like Cave In and some people go back farther than that. So yeah, you mentioned Converge.
I mean, to me, they were always like more kind of like I'm like on the border of mathcore.
Yeah, I always think of them more in that terms, but then I think about like even just thinking about Jane Doe as an album, And
yeah, I would say that's like a mathcore, like kind of like grindy album. Honestly.
but it's also like a big like metalcore influence too. So you may not be wrong in saying that, because like I'm a huge Converge fan, but you were the one who threw them into the mix here, and I've seen other people throw them in, and I don't think it's unfair. I mean, if we're thinking about the impact that not only the band had in that particular album, but also Kurt Ballou just as a producer, and I'll bet you take any metalcore fan, and
I always wondered how you pronounce that name. Is it Balu, Bailu?
I all said Ballou. That could be wrong. I don't know. I love all of the albums he puts out, but I'll bet if you ask pretty much any metalcore band, like who were their early influences, I'm willing to bet a lot of them would throw Converge in there. Misery.
Yeah.
No,
that's another one a lot of people like. You know Misery Signals, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm not a fan.
No?
No. And I definitely wouldn't call them Big Four. That's for sure. Personally.
I mean, a lot of people, honestly, like a lot of people don't really talk about them.
They, actually, I was watching a banger review on their channel, and they were reviewing the new Misery Index, and it was Blake, the funnier guy, and he made a joke that he's never listened to Misery Index before because he always confused them with Misery Signals, and he hates Misery Signals. So this was the first time he had heard a Misery Index album and learned that he liked them, even though he did not like Misery Signals. Yeah, I don't know. I'll give you Converge. I think that there's an argument to be made about that. And then I wanted to throw in Poison the Well.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Because
I haven't heard a lot of their later stuff.
Yeah, but again, like you talk about like foundational metalcore albums, and Opposite of December invariably comes up. That definitely just helped to define sort of where that genre solidified, because there were metalcore bands before Poison the Well, and again, we could make arguments about sort of the kind of proto metalcore bands out there, but I feel like that was the album where things started to.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You've heard of this band Martyr AD?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one that was like a very early like metal, like metallic hardcore.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And that could be a whole other discussion. I disagree with Christian on this, but he had a whole discussion in an interview on the Mathcast about how metallic hardcore and metalcore are the same thing. And I very much disagree with that sentiment, but I'd be interested to have a conversation
one
about
made
that.
The other, did it?
I mean, they're related and they play into each other. I think maybe at one point they were one and the same, but I'd argue that now those titles, those tags have evolved to mean something different. That's my point on it, I think, because like I don't think of Code Orange as a metalcore band.
I always thought they were just hardcore.
Yeah, they're like metallic hardcore mixed with like nu metal, and then we could go on a whole other conversation about that. So I'm gonna go back to this. But anyways, like I think, Opposite of December like really helped to define what metalcore was going to sound like for the next like almost 10 years, really. And pretty much everybody was copying that. I know some people will even like throw in From Autumn to Ashes, but I'd argue From Autumn to Ashes were pretty much just copying kind of like that whole style.
What whole style? Like,
kind
of. You elaborate?
I mean, they were kind of taking what Poison the Well was doing. They were adding a little bit more post-hardcore into it, a little bit more kind of like screamo and some other elements, but I don't consider them a foundational band either. I think they were more like, again, if we're thinking of this kind of like black metal, like you've got, first wave and second wave, and I think From Autumn to Ashes is a little bit more second wave, although I know it's kind of in close proximity to the earlier stuff too. So it's hard to decide.
Over here, you want to mention the big four of black metal?
Oh man, I feel like that's a little easier though. Bathory.
I mean, they'd all be Norwegian bands, so.
Well, I mean, again, it depends on if you're going first wave or second wave. So if we're making it simple and just going with like classic second wave Norwegian black metal, then yeah, it would be like Mayhem, Burzum, Dark Throne.
Yeah, Gorgoroth is one I always put in.
But then you don't have Immortal.
No,
and that's problematic.
When I always do it, I put Burzum, Mayhem, Gorgoroth, Immortal. That's the 4 I list. You do it differently.
But then you left out Dark Throne. See, it gets harder. Yeah, see, that does get trickier because I don't know. I have to think about that. I feel like Dark Throne has to be in there, even though I like Gorgoroth more than Dark Throne. I feel like Dark Throne is more interconnected into the foundation.
Then again, is Burzum really that good?
They're not good, but they were clearly a foundational band. But we're all over the place now. So I thought that would be easy, but no, I have to think on that some more. That would be an interesting argument too. But I feel like Burzum has to be in there. Like Burzum and Mayhem absolutely have to be in there.
What was that Philosophum album?
Well, even earlier than that though. Like you got to go back to Hivs Tar Os, or however the hell you pronounce it. I'm not going to try to speak Norwegian. Anyways, yeah. So that's still easier than metalcore, I think. I think Big Four of black metal is tricky, but it's a lot easier than metalcore. We also talked about the harder one too was As I Lay Dying, because As I Lay Dying showed up a little later, but that's another band where if you ask any metalcore band now what metalcore bands they were influenced by, and they'll all say As I Lay Dying. And so they weren't there from the beginning, but again, I think they helped sort of flesh out just overall what the sound was going to be in its prime.
Yeah. And all the controversies related notwithstanding.
Yeah, we don't even need to go there. I'm willing to separate the people from their music. I mean, going into the black metal discussion again too.
Separate the art from the artist.
Yeah. I mean, if we're gonna credit Burzum and Mayhem, then it seems silly not to credit As I Lay Dying.
Well, hey, that one of them was in self-defense. Remember?
Yeah, but which one? Oh goodness. Yeah, and we're not going to talk about Lords of Chaos. I did a whole video on that already, so let's not even go there. At your own risk. The more I think about it, the less I like it. I already did not particularly like it. I feel like I was pretty clear about that in my review. I didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to, but that's not to say that I thought it was good, nor would I watch it again. Yeah, but anyway, so, all right, so we're maybe Converge, Poison the Well, As I Lay Dying, and what's the fourth then?
Not Killswitch.
See, I feel like, I know you don't like Killswitch, and honestly, I don't really like Killswitch either. I only really like...
I mentioned this before. I just like Howard, so...
And I'm the opposite. I like...
Jesse?
Yeah, because I like that first album. Their first studio album, but whatever, like, their first big album, that's another, like... foundational album that everybody copied. Everybody wanted to be Killswitch, and not only that, but they were big enough that they toured with Slayer. So I feel like they have to be on there. And even though that's really the only album I like.
I wouldn't really say that.
Really?
That that people copied them or whatever.
Evidence. I need evidence.
Wait, evidence for people not copying them?
Yeah. I don't know
what's your evidence for people ripping them off?
I'm not ripping them off, but their style just became I feel like there would not be Parkway Drive takes a ton of their sound from Killswitch, big time, and a bunch of those other bands. The more melodic elements of their sound, that's all Killswitch-isms, as I put it.
Wait, don't they have 2 self-titled albums? I just looked this up.
Killswitch?
Yeah.
They might, I think you're right, because I think their very first, before they were signed, is self-titled. I could be getting this completely wrong.
Yeah, it says right here, Killswitch Engage 2000, Killswitch Engage 2009. They have 2 self-titled albums.
Well, then either I can't remember. Sometimes bands just do that though. Or they might have just they might have re-recorded too, but I don't know. But I think the one I really liked was
End of Heartache.
Yeah, End of Heartache was like the classic pre-Howard stuff.
No, Howard was on that one.
Oh no, then it's the one before that. What the hell? Why can't I can't remember like any album names right now. End of Heartache.
Just Breathing?
Yes. End of Heartache was the first one with Howard, and that was a big one too. But yeah, Alive or Just Breathing. And again, like, even though I don't like End of Heartache as much, like, that was a big cornerstone album that I feel like pretty much every metalcore fan went out and bought and started playing those riffs. And that was like an inspiration for a lot of other bands. So I would argue they belong in that fourth spot, but I'm willing to hear who you think belongs there instead.
I guess All That Remains could it be a contender?
You know, I thought about them today, actually.
Even though only like the really early stuff is really good.
Yeah, their first two albums, the first two signed albums, because I think they had a demo one. Yeah, they were really good. Relatively influential too. So I think there's a case to be made there. I was listening to that stuff around that same time. I just don't feel like they were as big.
Oh, we forgot one really big one. What about Unearth?
You know, I've been almost avoiding talking about them. There's a case to be made for that too. I know they actually get called the Slayer of Metalcore because they've just been so, well, people say they've been consistent. I don't think so. I find them to be kind of boring. But I do like.
Didn't you like almost hate the last album?
Yeah, I that was another one that I kind of nothinged. I haven't listened to it since then. Like, and I couldn't actually like name for you a single song or hum a single hook. Like, to me, that's a problem. Like, if an album was good, I should be able to remember like some of the riffs in my head, at least, or some of the vocals, or some of the lyrics, or something. Not a single thing of that album sticks with me, but. The Oncoming Storm was a big album, and they were a really big band. I would actually, even though I like those All That Remains albums better than pretty much anything Unearth has done, I think Unearth had more influence. And so I would argue probably Unearth over All That Remains, but I would argue Killswitch over either of them.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we got Unearth, Poison the Well, As I Lay Dying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was the fourth one?
Converge.
Converge.
Which we could argue just belongs in a separate category.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel good about. So maybe it is like Unearth, Killswitch, Poison the Well, and As I Lay Dying. That feels pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the best we're going to do with just 4. As far as like, and I think that encompasses sort of the core sound. It doesn't even begin to get into like the more, if we're going to get into like the gent stuff, then we start to, I would actually, for that, I would throw in like After the Burial, because they were one of the earlier metalcore bands to adopt that style.
I mean, they were too late though.
Well, who was doing that before them?
What, the progressive metalcore thing?
Yeah, with like the specifically kind of Meshuggah influenced riffs.
I can't really think of anybody.
I feel like they were one of the earlier ones to do that.
Yeah. And then like there was like North Lane, Volumes, Periphery. Yeah.
I don't like North Lane.
No?
No.
Wait, what do you mean? They sound like Periphery.
Periphery's better. Well, you got to go listen to more Periphery, and you can make a decision on that. I would definitely. So again, if we're gonna make a separate big 4 on like the progressive metalcore with the Meshuggah influence, then After the Burial, Periphery. How influential is North Lane? Like, I don't feel like a lot of people talk about North Lane. Like, they come up, but
I mean, if you're like on the big like metalcore groups and like merch swapping stuff like that, like especially one with like a lot of Australian members, they mention them quite a bit.
I'm just not a fan, but that's not what this is about. It's about influence, so I'm not sure. But I don't know, that we don't need to keep coming up with extra big 4s. I feel pretty good about our basic metalcore big four.
Yeah, next
Yeah.
episode we could talk about Big Four of Deathcore.
Oh God. You're
Actually,
I'm gonna
that'll be
need your
kind of an
help on
easier
that
one.
one. Yeah.
That's gonna be an easier one, I think.
Well, because you got. I mean, you definitely need Suicide Silence and Whitechapel in there.
Do you really need Whitechapel?
Dude, you like can't mention Suicide Silence without Whitechapel. Like they go hand in hand. Like they were kind of like brother bands almost, I'd say. Like they both came up very early on and were like the two that I remember when that was all getting started, and I worked at like a residential facility, and every now and then I'd get kids that were into metal, and that was all they were listening to was Whitechapel and Suicide Silence.
Wait, really? How old were these kids? Like high school?
Yeah,
or?
like 16, thereabouts, like in that range.
Yeah, that probably must have been like mid 2000s.
I don't know if we want to go earlier, obviously, I know you kind of need to throw in dang it, why can't I'm doing so bad today. So there's a band that like I never really listened to and all my friends listened to at that time, and I just got into them kind of later. They
For
come
Deathcore?
Yeah, it's like deathcore. There's some like people from the mathcore crowd tend to like them too because they were kind of technical. They were kind of tongue in cheek too. They would make jokes about. I remember watching an interview where they were kind of like ripping on Suicide Silence while they were touring with them because they were like hazing them as the newcomers, and they don't take themselves.
Was this the Red Cord?
Red Cord. That's the one. Yes, the Red Cord.
That's one you should put in that category as well.
Who would you put in there? Because I guess, yeah, it does go back a lot further.
What, for Big Four of Deathcore?
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
you know
I
this
guess,
more than I do.
I guess the Red Cord, Suicide Silence, Carnifex, and Despised Icon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and
you
know that stuff a lot better than I do. That's why I tend to throw you like the slam and deathcore stuff a lot more, because I know you've got probably more history with it too. I was a very late adapter to metalcore. I probably only got into deathcore probably, I want to say Suicide Silence was probably like already 3 or 4 albums in by the time I kind of started even listening to it. So that was a ways along.
Yeah, you know the band Animosity? You remember that name?
Sort of.
Or sort of? Yeah, one of the first CDs I bought was like their debut album. From what I remember, yeah.
Yeah, I was late to that. Like for my early days, it was all like I got super into metalcore and then kind of segued into melodic death metal. And then I got into like the more popular symphonic black metal like Dimmu Borgir and kind of stayed in that range for a while. Then I got into like, the typical stuff like Opeth and eventually found my way towards like the more like intense stuff like actual second wave black metal. And I didn't even really listen to like a lot of like Cannibal Corpse and stuff back then. It took me a while.
But when you say second wave, of black metal, what bands do you refer to? Because that, I don't know, that kind of always confuses me.
No, because second wave officially means like Mayhem, Burzum, Dark Throne. Because
like in my mind, they were always like kind of the originators.
But they're the originators of the sound. But that specific term, when people say second wave black metal, they specifically mean the Norwegian bands. Because first wave is like Venom, Celtic Frost, and Bathory, like the proto black metal bands that were kind of before it was even called Venom, black metal.
Aren't Venom from England though?
Yeah, but they were all more like thrash influenced bands, like that's where all those Norwegian bands formed the style from. They like took Venom's kind of stage performance and they coined the term black metal because they had an album called Black Metal, and then they mixed that with like King Diamond's Corpse Paint, and then Bathory was the biggest influence kind of on the sound because it was still thrash, but it had that kind of like darker edge to it. And same with Celtic Frost, and they kind of just hodgepodged all those things together, and boom, you've got Norwegian black metal. But
I think that band's actually still around, right? Venom. I've
Yeah.
heard about them.
Yeah, they
recently.
still put out albums. They're not good. At least I don't think
That's all you have
so.
to say.
Yeah, I don't. They just put out an album like a year or two ago, I want to say. It hasn't been that long. But yeah, they're still around. I mean, technically well, not really. Celtic Frost was still doing stuff until recently, and now it's Triptychon, because it's just Tom G. Warrior doing his stuff. Triptychon's awesome.
What's that?
Triptychon is, so Tom G. Warrior was the lead of Celtic Frost, and then he formed, basically, so Celtic Frost put out like a final album called Monotheist, which sounded nothing like any of their other stuff. Like pretty much all the thrash element was gone. It was much more kind of like doomy and sludgy, but like mixed with some kind of like leftover thrash influences, and really dark, really good. It's an amazing record. Like that record did very well. Everybody was totally blown away from it, which was a big deal because, you know, most fans of a band get pissed when the band sounds completely different, but people loved that album. And then he had a falling out with the other Celtic Frost people. So then he formed Triptychon, which basically continued the sound that they did on Monotheist. And they put out 2 albums, and Tom G. Warrior was also friends and worked with H.R. Giger, the artist, because they both live in Switzerland. And so
that's the guy from the Aliens.
And so that's another cool thing about Triptychon, is that all their album art is H.R. Giger art, which kind of adds an extra, and it fits really well because it just fits that dark, kind of ugly, depressive sound that they're going for. I'd highly recommend checking them out. They're really good. I think they're working on a new one. Triptychon. Yeah, check out the last Celtic Frost album, Monotheist, and then check out the 2 Triptychon albums. All right, well, I got to start winding up to go home, and we've done over an hour now, so I feel like this is a pretty solid episode of whatever this is. Whatever we're going to call this.
Trench trash.
Trench trash. I think that is fitting. It was just a random hodgepodge of shit-talking memes and random
How long
musings.
were we even here? I lost track of time. Has it been an hour?
We recorded over an hour. All right, but this was fun.